Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be reacting to a video on Med School Insider's channel called How USMLE Step 1 Turning Pass-Fail is Changing Medical School. So I thought that this might be an interesting video for me to react to. Being a medical student, I'm a little bit closer to this entire process of Step 1 compared to Dr. Kevin Jabal. So I took Step 1 in 2020, so it was still a graded score, but now students are now getting prepared to take it with the pass-fail. So let's talk about how that's affecting medical school. So don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Share with your friends, and yeah, let's get into the video.
As of January 26, 2022, the USMLE Step 1 exam has officially become pass-fail. The goal of this change was to improve well-being and decrease burnout among medical students, but has it succeeded in achieving this goal?
No.
Step 1 is typically taken at the end of the second year of medical school and is followed by Step 2 CK at the end of the third year or sometime during the fourth year. Up until now, Step 1 has been arguably the most important test a future physician will ever take.
That's true.
These scores became heavily weighted during residency applications to assess a candidate's strength. So much so, in fact, that low scores became prohibitive for students wishing to pursue highly competitive specialties. If you wanted to become a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon, for instance, but you didn't score high enough on Step 1, you could pretty much kiss your dream specialty goodbye.
That is also still true.
USMLE Step 1 will be graded as pass-fail and will no longer be the primary determinant of one's competitiveness as a residency applicant. The main reason for this change was to improve the well-being of first and second year medical students by decreasing stress around the Step 1 exam. Burnout and depression are a big problem amongst medical students, and having one exam pretty much determine your entire career trajectory was, unsurprisingly, incredibly stressful for most students.
So I get the thought behind this, but I really don't think that this is going to succeed in any way to decrease stress and decrease burnout. Maybe it will succeed in getting rid of Step 1 and Step 1's weight in residency applications, and students will be forced to do many other extracurriculars in order to make themselves stand out on their residency applications. And they won't really be able to just focus on being a medical student. So I predict that research is going to become much more important, and it already was important, especially in the more competitive specialties. But getting a high enough score on Step 1 would allow you to potentially get your foot in the door if you didn't have as many projects or publications in that specialty. Now, in order to get looked at as a medical student, students are gonna have to have much more projects and publications under their belt in order for them to stand out to residency programs. So this means that students are gonna have to start with research in their first year of medical school, or even in undergrad, or even take a year off before they start medical school to do research, which will end up making the already extensive medical education even longer than it already is. And needless to say, a lot of medical schools have already transitioned to pass-fail curriculum in order to prevent competitiveness and stress in the first 2 years of medical school. And just reaching a score that is acceptable as passing can be difficult for some students, especially when studying difficult subjects such as cardiology, nephrology, neurology. So it can be difficult to get a good score when all you're thinking about is just getting good grades and studying. But now add splitting your time between extensive research hours and studying. And you're basically leaving the medical student with no time for self-care, no time to go to the gym, no time to spend time with friends, because their every waking moment is spent either studying or doing research or trying to figure out other ways to stand out besides Step 1. Oh, and this will also impact your medical school decision even more now, because you're going to want to go to a medical school that has research opportunities already established for its students and has students who have already been successful in publishing their research.
The thought process is that by making it pass-fail, much of that stress will go away. This is a reasonable assumption, as pass-fail medical school curriculums, which have been around for quite some time, have been shown to improve mood and group cohesion. When you aren't feeling like you have to compete against your classmates for the top grades, there's much less pressure to perform, and you're more likely to collaborate and help each other out.
So, I mean, this is true. Medical students are definitely more inclined to help each other out to an extent. They clarify concepts that maybe some people didn't get, and they study together, but that's really it. At this point, medical students have all been gunners in high school and in college, trying to be at the top of our classes in the hopes that we will get a chance to go to medical school. You know, caring really hard about the SATs, the ACTs, the MCAT scores in order to try and get a spot. And the mentality that goes with it only goes away to a certain extent. Old habits die hard, especially when those habits exist for self-preservation in the form of finding the best resources or always looking out for ways where you can get a leg up without necessarily thinking about paying it forward and sharing that with your fellow students.
Although that may be the intention, in reality, I don't believe it's necessarily the case. Instead, making Step 1 pass-fail just kicks the can down the road and puts additional stress on Step 2 CK, which is still graded on a numerical scale. In addition, this change may make Step 2 CK even more stressful than Step 1 was. Before, if you didn't do well on Step 1, then you at least had Step 2 CK to help bolster your application. Now, if you mess up on Step 2 CK, you don't have another exam to help offset your lackluster performance. Step 2 is also taken after clinicals, when your schedule is incredibly busy. To further complicate things, your schedule for away rotations is determined at the end of your third year, usually before taking Step 2 CK. If you intended on derm or plastics but don't perform well on the test, you might no longer be aiming for those specialties.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely going to push the stress to Step 2, especially because, as I mentioned, students are going to have to find other ways to make themselves stand out. Step 2 being after third year means that yes, you already have your schedule set up for fourth year. If you don't perform well enough on Step 2, then there's really no point in doing rotations in your dream specialty when you already know that you're not going to get a chance to be that type of doctor. The study time for Step 2 is also generally about a month, compared to Step 1, which is usually allocated like 2 to 3 months. My school gave us half a semester to study for Step 1, and even then COVID happened, so I ended up getting 5 months, but that was a different issue.
Step 2 isn't the only metric that's being given more weight either. Subjective measures like letters of recommendation and clerkship grades will also be more important for residency applications moving forward. These measures may introduce another unintended level of stress, as medical students have less control over them. For instance, clerkship grades are highly variable between programs, with some programs grading more heavily based on your shelf scores and others emphasizing subjective evaluations from preceptors. In addition, some clerkships give out high honors like candy, whereas others make it near impossible. This can further increase stress for students when these metrics are more subjective and less standardized.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, letters of rec and clerkship grades can be very subjective. I think that this will definitely cause stress. I mean, I've had rotations where getting a good evaluation in a 6-week rotation was based off of whether or not I answered one question right on one specific day. And it didn't give any weight at all to all the work that I had done in the rest of the 6 weeks. And I think that this will also open up more opportunities for medical students to face abuse by residents who want to pawn off their work on the medical student or just treat them poorly for a multitude of reasons.
Since Step 1 will no longer be weighted as heavily on residency applications, students are spending less time studying for Step 1 and more time on the components of their applications that will make them more competitive. This includes Step 2 CK prep, research, extracurricular activities, and medical school performance. Step 2 CK is essentially becoming the new Step 1 in terms of residency application importance, so it stands to reason that many students are allocating less time to Step 1 prep and more time to Step 2 CK prep. To stand out on their residency applications now is to maximize their research experience. Having more publications and research projects is typically seen as more impressive. It is also an easy metric for residency programs to use to sort applicants since the number of publications and research projects is numerical. Dean's lists and class rankings will also become more important as they are an objective way of comparing students amongst their peers.
Right, but the whole purpose of making a pass-fail curriculum in medical school was to decrease competition. But by increasing the importance of Dean's List and class ranking, the level of competition is going to increase again. The focus of it is just going to be different. And it goes to show that grades on exams do matter, even if they are just pass-fail, because when you apply to residency, your school has to send in where you rank in relation to your peers.
Remember that it is better to focus on the things you can control than the things you can't. You don't want to fall into the trap of having a victim mentality and blaming your inability to get into your desired residency on external factors. It is only by adopting an internal locus of control that you can make yourself the best applicant, and more importantly, the best version of yourself. This mentality is what will allow you to get through the gauntlet that is medical school and residency. What separates those who are successful from those who are not is a willingness to adapt and push forward. Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. If you find yourself getting discouraged because your dream specialty is highly competitive, stop right there. Your ability to crush Step 2 CK and have dozens of research articles is less a function of your intelligence and more a function of proper preparation, constantly improving, and putting in the work. Having a stellar residency application and crushing the interviews is no different.
So I think that this is an interesting idea, and Dr. Kevin Jabal is totally right. But that's only because the medical community is so messed up and toxic. I mean, this is a field where no matter how unfair the policies become, and how much more difficult it becomes to succeed, getting frustrated, upset, or basically having any emotion at all about it is looked down upon and can work against you. In order to excel in medicine and become the best version of yourself, as Dr. Jabal says, is basically to become a robot that eats, sleeps, and breathes medicine and nothing else. Passion for medicine is a good thing, but in order to become great doctors, I don't believe that medicine should be the only thing we're passionate about. We are supposed to treat human beings, so we should also remember that we are human beings. And I just wish that the system that educates us would remember and treat us as such. So this was a very interesting video for me to watch. I mean, I took step 1 in 2020, and I remember thinking how unfair it was that the exam was going to become pass-fail in the future, but I still had to take it at a time when it was going to be scored. But now I feel glad that I got to take the exam under the old circumstances, because I don't know if I would have been as successful in applying to residency as I was if I had had to change my tactics for making myself competitive without being able to go into medical school prepared for that change. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!